Loud, and online.
Puts it up. Whoa! There goes Davis. Oh my God! Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. American football. It's finally the one. American football has won the Triple Crown. And Bonds hit way high. It's a deep. It is out of here. High fly ball into right field. She is gone. Unbelievable! A home run for Gibson, and the Tigers have won the game 5-4. I don't believe what I just saw.
Here are your hosts, Jamie Bradford and Darren Goldwater.
All right, greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, 12:02 p.m. on this breaking news Tuesday, July the 28th. Darren Goldwater to my left. I am Jamie Bradford. Collectively, we are at JB and Goldwater across all social media platforms, and we're here for the next couple of hours to keep you incredibly entertained today. There is a lot of news. A lot of news. Live, loud. Uh-oh. That's me.
On
Playback.
delay.
There's a lot of news to get to. Major League Baseball news certainly pertaining to the Marlins, the Braves, and others. That is coming here in just a few moments. Mike Morgan with ESPN and the SEC Network, and, of course, as part of the JC and Morgan podcast, he'll join us at 1 o'clock today, and that will be a very fun conversation with him. We've got some Big South news. We've got a bunch of NFL news to get out. The Big 12's Bob Bowlesby has spoken on conference schedules. We're going to get all of that to you here in just a little while. I think I mentioned the Braves. We got a lot of that coming. And in just a second, we're going to start with some news in college football and how that could pertain to Clemson and South Carolina. And by the way, we'll talk today about what would the ideal schedule look like for the Gamecocks and the Tigers amongst the schedules that are being considered at this point in time. Should get some clarification later on this week. But which one would benefit Clemson most? Which one would benefit South Carolina the most? That is all in this program today. You can watch us on YouTube. You can watch us on Twitter. You can watch us on Facebook, Periscope. You can listen on the Podbean app for free. Just type in JB and Goldwater across all social media platforms, in YouTube, in Podbean. We come right up. We're free every single day. JB and Goldwater Show.com. Also, going to add David Cloninger to the schedule. He is on the beat with South Carolina in the Post and Courier. He'll join us at 12:30. 12:30. So you'll want to be a part of that conversation. Here's why. Before we get to baseball, just a little bit ago, I'm going to try to dish Darren. Sorry, I didn't ask you how you're doing yet. How are you doing?
I'm good, man.
Okay,
You're rolling. We got breaking news. I'm working over here trying to keep up with what we got, so I'm good.
Okay. All right. Make sure you don't forget about Cloninger in 26 minutes.
Yeah, no, I got that. I was just informed, you know?
I know. All right, so here is breaking news from college football just a little while ago. All conferences at the FBS level have received a notice, and they received it last night. Quote, relief is provided on a one-time basis for the 2020 football season due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. An email obtained by Yahoo Sports says that a blanket waiver will allow all FBS schools to start on August the 29th. That is currently known as Week 0. There were only a handful of games scheduled there already. Those games, scheduled for different reasons, had to clear the NCAA's scheduling protocols a long time ago to be able to do that. But now they're saying if you'd like to schedule games on August the 29th or a game on August the 29th, you can do this because it will provide, quote, additional flexibility for schools navigating the football season. And this is kind of similar to what Lawton Swan mentioned on our program on Monday. And he was saying, look, if the students aren't on campus, play as many games as you can. Well, clearly there's a time crunch here. And this does not mean that every school is going to just go out and, we're just going to schedule a game on August the 29th. They might not feel like that's beneficial to them. They might not feel like they have enough time. We don't have announcements from some leagues yet, like the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, as to what they're going to do with their schedules. We do know that the Big 10 and the Pac-12 are going to play 10-game conference schedules. They may decide to take advantage of this week to try to squeeze 10 games into essentially 15 weeks into the fall. That gives you 50% of games played. That gives you 50% off weeks if you need to delay ball games. So we'll get to all the medical side of this here in a minute as to why that's beneficial. But if the Big 12 moves forward with a 12-game schedule, they might say, hey, look, we're going to go ahead and schedule games on August the 29th. Matter of fact, that's already happened in the Big 12. Just found out a little while ago that Iowa State, they have scheduled Ball State to play on August the 29th. I think that was in place of the Iowa game that was scheduled for a few weeks later. So they've taken on Ball State, and they're going to plug them in a week early in their schedule on August the 29th. We know Oklahoma is already I think they've decided to play an August the 29th game, correct?
Yeah, a while ago they moved their game with Missouri State back a week in order to have an off week before playing Tennessee.
Right.
So they got that waiver like a week or two ago.
But they specifically had a waiver. That was not an FBS-wide waiver.
Correct.
So now this has been opened up to all of college football at the FBS level. So this is substantial news. The NCAA's Board of Governors, remember, they have contemplating. They've been contemplating fall championships at the D2 and D3 level. Bad news for D3 is that 23 of the 28 D3 conferences, they're not even going to play this fall. So that is other breaking news that we're leading off the show with today, and I'm going to credit Dennis Dodd with CBS for that there. So. Darren, here's what this is kind of saying. We're moving forward with college football season as it stands today, and we're going to give you more flexibility to get a season in. Now, again, there are still decisions that need to be made, but this is obviously a decision that's being made to play the season. I said yesterday, and I bet I might as well go ahead and put those words back in my mouth, I thought maybe it might be appropriate to go ahead and back the season up, and that's this is just me speaking. I might be wrong on that, because if there are students not showing up to campus until mid-September, then why not play as many games as you can if you're capable of doing so, as opposed to trying to crunch everything in to maybe play 9 or 10 games in only 10 or 11 weeks or something like that. So I don't know. I could be right or I could be wrong, but it looks like the NCAA is actually going to go the other way with this, Darren, and give schools more of an opportunity to play their football seasons, because the FBS, as we know it, is moving forward, at least as of now.
Yeah, and that's a good sign that what they're saying right now is, listen, put aside whatever you may be thinking about the news from Major League Baseball yesterday, and then the follow-up on that, which we'll get to more on today. But we're going to do, again, everything in our power to play. That's been the standard line forever. Now, this feels like an immediate type reaction that makes people cram. It feels like the night before a final, and you haven't barely gone to the class, and you got to
been there.
Yeah, right. We all have. You got to figure out how you're going to get to that class and pass. That's what this feels like, because we're a month away from August 29th. So right now it's, all right, teams, if you can get that game on your schedule, go do it if you can pull that thing off. And a month is not a ton of time, but with all the teams out there that are now looking for additional games because of individual team or league cancellations, there are teams out there that want to play. I would expect the teams that can make this happen, I think we're going to see announcements soon about games that are going to be played on that week 0.
Well, you'd have to, because you've got schools starting practice at the end of this week. Fall practice is coming, guys. We're within just a couple of days of this real practice for schools who are already scheduled to start on August the 29th. Remember, if you were planning to play September the 5th, your practices did not begin until the end of the first week of August. But if you were one of the few teams who was already playing on August the 29th, then you could start practice a week prior. Well, if there are teams that try to go ahead and play a game that soon, then obviously their practice window is going to open earlier, and they would be able to get out there onto the field. Let me correct something real quick. Iowa State's game with Ball State is actually going to be September the 12th. That will not be on August the 29th, so I misspoke there. But here's the point. The Big 12 appears to be going forward with a 12-game schedule because we don't have an announcement from them yet, but Oklahoma and Kansas, they're starting camp on Friday. They are starting camp on Friday, and schools are filling in their September schedule with teams not in the Big 12.
It's okay for various teams here to try and piece this together the best they can. What we can see from the Big 12 is clear. Right? They may have not come out with a statement saying, look, we're 12 games or bust, but if you pay attention to what's going on, the Big 12 is trying to get 12 games in.
Yeah.
And that is clear, and that ties in. Look, I think Bob Bowlesby has probably done as well, and I've said this before, as any other commissioner out there during this entire pandemic. He has been very consistent in saying we don't know what's going to happen. We could start and pause and finish. We might not start. We might start early. And with his conference pushing ahead, he came out yesterday and said, listen, it's fine. If different conferences play different schedules, that's fine. This is going to be a year of oddities. So however we can get something in, let's get it in. Let's go.
Absolutely. David Cloninger is going to join us at 12:30. So let me throw this scenario out there real quick. And I did speak with an SID this morning, and in our email exchange, trying to set up some interviews for the fall, this SID said to me, can we push back these interviews until we have a better idea of what is going to happen and the dust settles with clarity on the schedule, end quote. So I wonder if this particular SID already knew about this. I'm sure they did. He did, since this memo was sent to all of the FBS schools last night. So let me throw this out there in saying that. Both Dan Radakovich and Ray Tanner have made it incredibly and abundantly clear that Clemson and South Carolina, if there's a football season, not only do they want to play, they will play. But in knowing that we're dealing with a pandemic and that there could be a halt to the season if it starts, or could be postponements and things of that nature, you might piecemeal a season, as you mentioned a moment ago, and only get a certain number of games in. Would it be beneficial to think about playing that game on August the 29th if you're Clemson or South Carolina? And I'm going to talk to David Cloninger about this at 12:30, who obviously is on the beat with the Gamecocks up in Columbia, and try to get his take on this. But I just texted with somebody a little bit ago that said that is certainly a possibility.
I brought that up weeks ago when the schedules were being debated, and I said, listen, if we want to be sure rivalry games get in, instead of waiting for the end, remember, you shot it down immediately because you're like, I don't want to play him first game of the year.
Yeah.
But I put it out there. I said, look, if we want to make sure we preserve these rivalries, one way we can try, if the season starts and we don't know what happens after it starts, throw that game up front, get that game in, and then see what happens the rest of the way.
And then see what happens. Absolutely. Yeah, Darren. I mean, and and if Clemson and Carolina, and again, look, guys, this is me talking based on the information that we've received and just kind of filing through a couple of sources I've got out there and seeing if they happen to agree with what I'm saying here. But if it is that important to get this game in, this Clemson-Carolina game, you'll probably see other rivalries maybe saying something similar if schools elect to move games to this date. Because, again, we don't know what we don't know. Here's what we do know. This is what we do know. Teams have been practicing in a bubble. All right, everybody, the term bubble sure has come back, hasn't it? This bubble is on every campus right now. You are in a bubble. Clemson and South Carolina have navigated these waters beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
There are currently, between those two programs, as we know it, based on information that we received, I think it was through Friday, not one case between the two schools. Nada. Nothing. If you're able to maintain that number or something quite similar, you will know going into that game on August the 29th that you've got two teams that are, A, healthy, from actually an injury standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
But 1B, or however you want to term this, healthy from a COVID standpoint, where it's like, if it all falls apart on that Sunday, at least we know we played one. So, and it's the one that matters in this state. So I don't know if it's a real possibility. Only guys named Will Muschamp, Dabo Swinney, Ray Tanner, and Dan Radakovich and others in that tight circle who are trying to figure all this stuff out are really privy to that information. But it certainly is worth a conversation because, if you kind of shuffle through the news and the notes and read the tea leaves here, Darren, you can get a little bit of a picture of how you might be able to do some of this. So we'll see what happens, but certainly David will have conversation on that coming up at 12:30, and then Mike Morgan at 1 o'clock. Their take will be much better than mine. I won't lump you into this lousy conversation that I'm having, but theirs will be better than mine.
And look, opinions on this are going to they're going to vary, but I think anyone who's involved in the sport, if there's a way to not just preserve a rivalry game, if we can get the season underway, if we can play this thing, we're jumping on board. We're all on this train. So if we can pull it off, then that's fantastic. It's such a weird dichotomy because you've got the majority of college football being the lower levels, the FCS leagues that have the D2s, the D3s. You got all these things canceling and pushing back. And here's the FBS jumping out today and saying, listen, we think there might be a window to start early. We're going to go the exact opposite direction of everybody else.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to watch and see how this plays out.
It very much so is, Darren. And it also, again, kind of brings back this question that we asked on Friday. Did the Big Ten and did the Big 12, when they, the Big 12 or Big Ten kind of went rogue in this decision, did they jump too soon? Did Kevin Warren, who's basically a freshman as a conference commissioner, did he act too soon instead of waiting on guys, like Greg Sankey, Bob Bowlesby, John Swafford? These dudes have been around a while. They know what they're doing. Did he act too soon? Is the Big Ten and the Pac-12, could they be losers in this? Or could they reverse course and say, hey, look, all right, maybe we'll try that as well. I don't know. I hadn't heard anything from them.
I've already seen, and we talked this, last week, that if that scenario plays out, if it looks like other conferences can get multiple games in, not just conference games, that the Big Ten could theoretically reverse course, and just like everything else, we're seeing plans and ideas change on a daily, almost hourly basis right now. So Can they revert? Of course.
I would think they could.
And I saw earlier today a model or an idea floated out there in an article. Can the Big Ten go to a 10-1? And the answer is yeah, if they choose to do that and if scheduling allows and all of those details. But who's going to stop them from saying we got a different idea now? We're changing.
No question. We are supposedly going to hear schedules being hear about schedules being released this week from the Pac-12 at least. But could that be pushed back just a little bit? We'll have to wait and see. But this is big news today as to what is to come in college football. What is to come in Major League Baseball? That has been the question over the last 24 hours. 4 more Marlins test positive today, and it brings that total to 17. No Phillies to this point have tested positive, so that is really good news. Now, let's make sure that we're fair to the conversation here. Of course, I'm a see the glass half full guy as always. They don't have any. Doesn't mean that they couldn't down the road. It doesn't mean that these symptoms have not maybe presented in some of their players. That we want to make sure that you understand that information. Be careful what you read out there. However, There are no positives right now, and that's what you need to work off of. In saying that, the Yankees are still not going to play tonight out of an abundance of caution in Philadelphia, and they're going to return back to New York and practice and get ready to go for I don't even know what's next on their schedule. The Marlins, though, it's a little bit of a different conversation because Major League Baseball has not indicated in any way, shape, or form that they're A, going to cancel the season overall, B, cancel the Marlins season, C, back the Marlins up 2 weeks or anything like that. The Marlins are still in Philadelphia because they're going to go through another round of testing before they can come back. Remember, players have to get 2 negatives 24 hours apart to be eligible to return, Darren. So it's not good news for Miami.
It's the same thing.
They should be the Florida Marlins.
They are the Florida Marlins.
Right? Everybody says Florida. It's not necessarily good news for the Miami Marlins. The question, though, becomes how do you move forward? Because all indications are that they're going to move forward. We just don't know when and how.
Well, there's been a wrinkle minutes ago. Ken Rosenthal put out there, and this follows up on yesterday. And, maybe I'll play that first. The Nationals have now become very much entwined or intertwined with everything that's going on with the Marlins. I'm going to play this from yesterday and then give you the update from today. This is Dave Martinez. Keep in mind, the manager's national has a heart condition that forced him to miss some time last year. This is him speaking on the current situation prior to the Nationals game yesterday. Here we go.
But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm scared. I really am, So I go from here, home, back here every day. That's all I do. I wash my hands. I went from 47 times a day to probably 99 times a day. Wear my mask everywhere I go. So, there's always, there's that concern, You don't know, right now you don't know if, because of my heart condition, what happens, to me if I do get it. So I got to be extra careful. With that being said, sometimes I tend to put myself aside and worry about other people more than me. I think that's why I'm here, because I worry about those guys before I put myself first.
So he's worrying about those guys. Those guys, his team voted the majority, not unanimous, but the vast majority voted not to make the trip to Miami for the Nationals' next series.
Which starts on the 31st.
Yes. So the Nationals have 2 more with the Blue Jays, and then they're scheduled to go down to Miami. And Dave Martinez alluded to this yesterday, that he doesn't feel comfortable, and he said he'd leave it up to the powers that be. The team has now voted that they don't want to go. So now what will Major League Baseball do? Is this the Nationals are going to forfeit? Is this a postponement? Is this the Marlins forfeit? Because the Nationals don't want to go because of a situation with the Marlins. But that issue is now a very real one for Major League Baseball.
So if they don't play that series, Miami and Washington, there has not been an indication that there's going to be a makeup, at least to this point. Could there be down the road? Possibly. And kind of leaves you with a couple of options here, right? You either suspend the season for the Miami Marlins. There's nobody in Major League Baseball, the owners, executives, nobody has said we're suspending the season, period, the end for Major League Baseball, and I don't think that they should. But should the season at least be suspended temporarily for Miami for them to get a better take on this? Maybe. That could be a potential solution to this problem. I have one issue with the conversation that has been being had with Miami. Mm-hmm. And I'm seeing this with major baseball writers in this country, and they need to stop this crap. This is crap. Insinuating that it is in some way, shape, or form unfair for the Marlins to play by pulling up a large majority of their taxi squad is delusional, it is idiotic, and it is unnecessary. Every baseball team knew what could happen this year. That includes the Miami Marlins. There's a reason why there is a 60-man taxi squad. There's a reason why there are other options in place to be able to sign additional players if you need to sign additional players. Don't tell those kids that. If it's their time and they choose to play, they should play. It is beyond ludicrous for some of these national writers to say it's not fair to Miami to send out essentially an independent league team. Well, who the hell are you? These guys made the 60-man squad. If that's what they've got, then that's what they have to play with if they play. Don't tell me if you need to postpone the season for Miami because, Darren, of health reasons, totally understandable. A totally different conversation. I'm all on board with that. Mm-hmm. I get it. I get that. But don't give me this, well, this isn't fair to them. I would feel horrible for them having to play teams like the Yankees and just get their brains bashed in. Oh, for God's sakes. They made it. If they get called up, that's their opportunity. You shut up and let them play the game. That's not your decision to make.
I haven't seen anyone that I necessarily respect, okay, so put it in those terms. But, look, we knew outbreaks could happen. I think the size of this outbreak is what is opening people's eyes. And is it unfair for the Marlins to continue to play by bringing up taxi squad guys? No, that's what they're there. That's the purpose of the rule. That's why they're there.
And that's a different conversation from whether they should or shouldn't based on health concerns.
Correct. You then tie in what Rob Manfred has said, at the beginning of the month on Dan Patrick's show, where he said, if we get to a point where it becomes a competitive disadvantage for one or multiple teams, is it a competitive disadvantage? Of course it's a competitive disadvantage, but don't cancel the season for the Marlins because you feel badly for them. Like, look, we all feel badly for them. No one wants to be in this situation, but they've got guys. If they're allowed to go that route, they've got guys to go that route. Now, is it safe? Is it safe to pull up these guys into this clubhouse right now that is running rampant with COVID? But that's a different question.
That's a different question, and we can't answer.
No.
They have to answer that question, and they have to answer it honestly.
That's right. They have to be comfortable, and you're going to see both sides of the fence. You're going to see the side of the fence that the Nationals are on, where they're not comfortable. You're going to see the side of the fence of guys who want to make their big league debut. They're saying, "Sign me up, man. Put me on that field. I want to taste my dream." There's going to be both sides of this. The question is, will Major League Baseball intervene? Will they do something? I mean, you can't just suspend the Marlins season and only the Marlins season for a period of time, because if they play again, you got 60 games. You suspend their season for a week, 2 weeks. How are you going to figure them into the standings?
Well, and honestly, if you suspend their season, what do you do with the teams who are supposed to play them? They don't have anybody to play.
At least it's relatively well, it's much easier than it would have been had it been a normal year, because only the Marlins will play the NL and the AL East.
Right.
So there are some teams and matchups that don't get played as often as others, but at least the group of teams are the same. Could they figure something out with the others? Yeah. Could you figure something out with the Marlins? I don't know. I think if you shut them down or suspend their season, you pretty much shut them down for the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's and I think that we knew that, right? I mean, they knew that there's a possibility that could happen. And again, these are not normal circumstances. There's going to be nothing normalized about the season. We already knew that coming into the year. The biggest question mark is what you said a minute ago, what you're spot on about. Like, if Washington said, look, we don't feel comfortable playing the games, and then the following series, Philadelphia said, well, we already went through this. We certainly don't want to do this again. And then New York says, we don't want to do it either. All right, well, now you got a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, now these teams are forcing your hand, and you're saying, look, y'all just lost your next 9 games. People don't – let's just – I don't know how you would figure that out. I mean, everybody could – the way I see it, you have one or two options. Either everybody just loses a bunch of games. That would be the Marlins and whomever they're playing. Or you suspend the Marlins season and then you try to find somewhere to make as many of these games up as you can, but you only have 6 off days, and they've made it crystal clear they don't want to play into November. So, you don't want to at the expense of the other 29 teams in baseball back their season up because of what the Marlins are going through. So, it's a little bit of a cluster here. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not trying to speak like one here, but I think the best solution would be if you have enough evidence and enough information that says, look, here's what we've done to ensure that everybody in this clubhouse here is not infected. Basically, we've essentially removed the entire team, or all these guys have come back, they've tested negative twice, whatever it is. We're going to bring up this number of players. We're going to go play. That might just be the only way you've got to get in as many games as you can, Darren. But again, you've got health concerns here. We'll see what they have to say about that. But it's certainly a cluster, and that is a totally appropriate conversation to have. Absolutely, 100%, no doubt about it. But some of these guys who are out there, quote, reporting, get that half-assed opinion out of your reporting, because I don't give a crap what you think about the taxi squad and whether they can compete in the big leagues or not. It's ridiculous.
That's literally why they're there.
It's ridiculous. I mean, you just turn in your credentials. I mean, that is just absurd. I mean, I wouldn't give I'm not going to say their name. I wouldn't give either one of these guys another credential to walk into my clubhouse ever again if I saw junk like that floating around the internet. It's just not necessary. We're already going through enough. These guys are going through enough. They're trying to figure this out. It's not like their intent was to screw up the year. I mean, they're trying to figure it out. I mean, sit there and bash on a bunch of kids who hadn't even been called. You don't even know. Do we even know who's positive?
No.
Who's positive? We don't even know. I mean, you don't even know who you'd be replacing, for God's sakes. You might be replacing a guy who hadn't even pitched all year.
You do know that from the initial reporting, there were 3 starting position players and a starting pitcher.
Okay.
But then from the explosion to where it is now, no.
You don't even know. I mean, you might have a guy who's hurt anyways. I mean, you have no idea. You're going to say stuff like that. Holy moly. Sorry.
No problem.
Is this vodka or water?
I can fill it.
It's water.
I got a bar downstairs.
I need a DB's cheesesteak in the worst way. All right, so we're going to hit a timeout. When we come back, we're going to get David Cloninger on the phone with the Post and Courier and get his take from the South Carolina side of this. Is that date now available for the Gamecocks to play on August the 29th? And based on the information that we know, what little information we do know, would it be appropriate to move a game up that early in the season? And are they going to try to move forward with a 12-game schedule? We should get that response later on this week from the league itself. But DC's up next. Remember, Mike Morgan, he'll join us at 1 o'clock today. Good to have my friend back on here. He's one of the best. Actually, you'll want to listen to the open of that segment, especially if you're a Carolina fan. I think you'll really, really enjoy this.
I'm sure you will. Look, Jamie's really good at producing stuff like that, so you'll like it.
Yeah. Again, vodka. All right, let me hit a timeout. We'll be right back.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Listen to this station on your smartphone. Download the app now on Google Play Store.
What's up, everybody? This is Patrick Davis, and you are listening to my friends JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
All right, 12:35 on a big-time breaking news Tuesday afternoon. How about you want some more breaking news? How about the Kansas City Royals have a new partial owner?
I saw that.
He's a quarterback, and he's pretty darn good. Young buck named Pat Mahomes, who, by the way, in his senior season of high school, touched 96 on the radar when he played baseball.
Watching him throw a football, hearing he throws 96 with a baseball is not anything that's going to surprise me.
Not earth-shattering news there, no question. All right, to the phone lines we go. I owe this man the world because I've had David Cloninger on my programs for like 2 or 3 years now, and I think all of 0 times in that time span, we usually schedule appearances, but anytime I've ever texted David and said, hey, man, can you hop on in 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Not once has he ever said no.
Yeah, that'll change.
No, it might. It might after today. DC, what's up, brother?
Well, not too much, Jamie. I mean, you texted, and I said, well, hell, I can watch Bonanza anytime. So, you know.
Hey, I was watching The Three Stooges the other day.
Which one? I mean, first of all, it's got to be one with Curly in it, because otherwise you're just wasting your time.
Yeah. With the original, like maybe one of the first seasons or something like that. I don't know. TV Land? Was it on TV Land?
Probably.
It might have been TV Land. That's just funny. I mean,
it's great stuff.
But see, you know, the thing with the three, didn't they make a movie about the Three Stooges?
I mean, they made a recent one. Mel Gibson produced it, and I believe, was it Michael Chiklis that might have played Curly? Or am I just imagining things? It's something like that, but it was not very good, I can tell you that.
No, it wasn't. You can't like, that's one of those things you can't redo.
I can be a stunt double for Curly. I couldn't deliver the lines, but
yeah.
Get my hair going, it'll work.
It's still funny, though. Three Stooges is classic. Okay, DC, so thank you, buddy. Thank you so much for joining us today on Twitter at DCPNC. He is the excellent, irreplaceable writer for the Post and Courier on the Gamecocks beat, and hopefully here soon he's going to have a lot more. He's had a lot. You've had plenty. You've had some. By the way, thanks for depressing me on Sunday with the whole 1984 thing. I appreciate that. But it was a great piece, no question. The news today that last night all FBS conferences, which means schools, received a memo from the NCAA saying, "Hey, look, we've cleared you all to play on August the 29th if you would like to do so in an effort to complete your football season." How does that relate to South Carolina? Is this something they would seriously consider, and whom would they try to play?
Well, Jamie, I think they would seriously consider it, but like we are doing throughout a lot of things in this day and age, it's all depending on. I mean, we have to see what happens when the ACC makes their decision, it might be Wednesday, when the SEC makes their decision, which you don't know when that's going to be. And then, once those leagues say, here's what it's going to be, then we can all start wondering, all right, now how is USC and other schools going to handle this? So it is something I'm sure that they could consider, but it's all going to depend on what the conferences say. If they all say, hey, they're doing a conference-only schedule and you can have one wild card game, well, you look at that and say, all right, well, if you look at the non-conference games on your schedule, who do you really want to play in that? Well, they want to keep the rivalry intact. So could maybe Clemson work it out to where you would play on August 29th? Maybe, maybe not, but it would have to be up to Clemson to do that because it's their game.
David,
and also, you have to look at it from this perspective, Jamie. School at USC, I believe classes start on August the 20th, and kids can come back on August the 15th. So on the 29th, that's exactly 2 weeks after, I think you might see some of your football players starting to get a rise in COVID. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe you can control it, but maybe most likely you're not going to be able to. So I think you'd have to work that into it as well and say, well, Clemson doesn't really have to worry about it because they're going online classes for the first 4 weeks of their semester. USC is not. So you would have to break that into it as well. But is it a possibility? Sure, just because everything's a possibility right now.
David, how surprised were you and other folks who are regularly on the beat of Power 5 schools that this announcement came yesterday to fully open up the possibility, if teams can do so, to play a game early, while on the other side of things, you're watching what's unfolding in Major League Baseball? I mean, the difference is striking. How surprising was it to you and others on beats?
Not surprising that the NCAA went ahead and passed the rule because, as we know at the NCAA, they're never proactive. They're always reactive.
Okay.
And there's already been a few schools who have moved their openers to the August 29th week and said, we're just going to play this to go ahead and get it out of the way. So there was no rule against it. So the NCAA basically said, okay, well, let's go ahead and make it clear that everybody can do that if they want to. You know, if they'd have been ahead of the curve, they could have just said that beforehand and let other schools start picking and choosing the games that they wanted to play, but they didn't do that. So the Marlins thing, of course, it's going to have an effect, but who knows? I mean, you always knew that baseball wasn't going to be like basketball and hockey and soccer just because they can't be in that kind of bubble. They considered putting them in a bubble in Florida and Arizona, but both of those states are the huge hot spots for corona. So you knew it was going to happen. You knew it was going to happen to one team. The Marlins are that team, and we'll see how that reacts down into college football because, like baseball, you can't play college football in a bubble. It's just not going to be able to be worked out that way, and they're going to have to try to find some way around it if they have any hope of playing this year.
On Twitter at DCPNC. All right, so – David, as of now, practice for the Gamecocks is scheduled to start, I think it's late next week because they're supposed to play a game on September the 5th against Coastal Carolina. Again, expecting a decision at some point in time, maybe this week from the SEC. I think the presidents meet on Thursday, maybe a release on Friday or a couple of days after. However, with this news, and maybe there are teams in the Southeastern Conference that would be considering playing that date, August the 29th, that would mean that practice you'd be able to start basically at the end of this week because if you started on the 29th, your fall camp was moved up a week. So, just speaking from logistics here, are some of these programs, any of these programs ready to put a schedule in place, a plan in place to get their kids out and get them moving maybe a week prior to what they were planning to do?
That's the thing, Jamie. I think it would be a case of the NCAA saying, listen, you're allowed to do that, but if you take that chance, that's your choice. And you're going to have to deal with all the logistics because we're not going to give you extra time. Now, the NCAA hasn't set a firm date for everybody. It's been up to the different leagues, and the SEC said they could do preseason camps starting on August the 7th. Okay, so that's fine. I would assume that if any SEC team wanted to do this, I mean, it's getting pretty close to August 7th as it is, and they say, hey, can we open up now? They'd probably say, well, no, you can't. But if you want to play on the 29th, that was your choice, so you kind of have to take the good with the bad and deal with that. And if schools take that, then they're just going to have to adjust to it. I know it's not ideal, but we're not living in an ideal time right now. So that's another factor that if USC decides to look at this, which, again, I'm not saying they will or won't, they'll just have to counter that in because, Will Muschamp, devotee to the practice regimen and to the practice field, the guy wants every bit of practice he can before he's got to get out there and start playing.
Yeah, there's no question. So right now, everybody still has, at least in this league, the Southeastern Conference, there's still a 12-game schedule in place, and again, that could all be changed here in the next 3 or 4 days.
No, or hours.
Yeah, or minutes, for all we know. But with this date in play, David, you've got August the 29th through November the 28th, which is when the regular season was supposed to end. And, of course, you've got an off week in there already, so that's a span of 14 weeks. If you add on the first 2 weeks in December, it gives you a span of 16 weeks. What is the reality, in your opinion, that the SEC could look at this? And I think the Big 12 is seriously considering moving forward with a 12-game schedule. They got teams just going out and scheduling games right now. Well, looking at this saying, look, we've got 16 weeks to play 12 games. We can do this. Or let's even be much more careful, and let's just try to play 10 games in a 16-week span. Which one of those would you lean towards as it stands right now?
I would think that they would look at the 10 first, Jamie, is the most logistical because that does give you some extra time, and it also gives you some extra time to say, well, we were planning to go out and play, let's say Mississippi State this week, but Mississippi State got sick, so they can't play. It gives you time to maybe reschedule that game at the end of the year. So if you go to 10, you give yourself a couple extra dates, a couple extra times to try to get whatever canceled game is in, and that helps you and your opponent. But that's what I would look at. Of course, they don't want to slice games if they don't have to. So I'm sure they'll say, okay, well, 12 games in 14 weeks, that works. I mean, or 12 games in 16 weeks, that works. But then you have to look at how it's going to go into the bowl season. Now, no SEC team is probably going to be playing a bowl that early in December. You know, the SEC teams will probably start playing a day before Christmas or so, and then it goes on really in that next week that they all get done. But there are other teams that will be playing bowls in that season. I believe they start around December 15th or so. So that would also have to come into play. But then again, that's not an NCAA decision. That's not a college decision. That's the bowl system decision. There's supposed to be 42 bowls this year, and you got to ask me how many of those get played?
Oh.
I'd say, I don't know, 30 maybe on a good week.
Yeah,
There's
I mean,
no telling.
yeah, you know, the biggest hurdle with the bowls. I mean, think about a normal year in football, DC. How many players in a normal year going into the Meineke Car Care Bowl say, "Yeah, I'm not going to play"? I mean, you got kids every year that just decide to not play in bowl games, and now in what could be another enhanced time with COVID, as you know, winter is upon us in mid-December and beyond. You're gonna put these teams on buses and planes and ship them God knows where, and put them in restaurants and hotels and different practice facilities. You know, they're in their own bubble now, but they can't control the bubble when they get to it in a place they haven't been. I think,
especially if they got to go to Florida. How many bowl games are held in Florida every year? I don't think of too many teams be like, where are we going again? The Citrus? Yeah, no thanks.
Exactly.
We'll stay back home and study for exams.
Yeah.
Study.
Yeah. That's what they all say. Yeah, I know. Exactly. I don't see the real reason to play a bowl season personally. I see every reason to play college football, but some of these, I mean.
Look, you might not have the teams anyway, depending on how the next couple of weeks shake out. If it's just the Power Five, and you don't have the Group of Five, you don't have teams to fill these games. Yeah,
no question.
That's the thing. I mean, I know that they want to try to play that playoff, and you know that's how you crown the champion. But just don't know if it's going to be feasible this year. I mean, the Orange Bowl is part of that rotating group. I'm not sure if they get a semi or a championship game this year, but who wants to go to Florida right now? Mm-hmm. And then you know the Cotton Bowl. Who wants to go to Texas right now? It's just you have to start thinking about these kind of things, and it's like I believe it was a piece in The Athletic or Sports Illustrated, I forget which, it said, look, you know, back when we talked about this in April, it's like, we got time to figure this out. It's all good. Time will be on our side. Well, it's not anymore, and you still don't have any answers to how you're going to approach this. So it's kind of one of those where to maybe put the polite phrase on it, you know, you go fishing, you don't cut bait. So what's going to happen here? So hopefully we'll have some decisions coming up. But, again, even when these decisions are made from the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, it's all just plans right now. We don't know how this thing is going to go. And it's like, well, we had a plan, but now we're going to have to change that because Corona, just the same thing that put us all in this to start with.
We know that college football, the NFL also, looking at Major League Baseball and how they can maneuver their way through what was an expected type of crisis, but maybe a little bigger than some would have expected. Are you hearing anything about their reaction early on? Are they still, I know they're in a wait and see mode, but is there any kind of rumbling about college football or the SEC's reaction to what's happening in baseball?
Not really. I mean, of course, they knew that they were always going to look at it, and they knew that looking at the NBA and the NHL models really wasn't going to have an effect on how college football would be played. Now, the baseball season would kind of have an effect because you do have that travel. You do have playing in different cities. You do have different teams coming to you that weren't in the same kind of contained bubble like the NBA and the NHL were. So, I mean, I'm sure it's concerning. But if you say it's like, oh, well, is there going to be a drastic change just because of what the Miami Marlins are going through? No. I think that all the college administrators pretty much have a plan, and as I said, it's time to start fishing now instead of just cutting bait like they have for the past 4 months. And once you make a plan, you can't really put it back. You know, you got to go ahead and stick with it. Now, if you have to change it, okay, fine, but that's a force of nature that you couldn't help. But once you had the plan and put it out there, and people have to start rescheduling, dealing with tickets, dealing with season ticket holders, dealing with all the logistics, you have to stick with that plan. So we'll see how that goes, but I don't think the Marlins situation or MLB situation is really going to have that big of an effect on what college football decides to do.
Okay. Yeah, I think what's most important is that they're learning from the Marlins and Major League Baseball how you deal with this when it happens. It's just a foregone conclusion. At some point, it will happen in college football. Real quick, final question. We'll let you go. To the best of your knowledge, as it stands here on the 28th of July, any COVID cases at South Carolina? I know last week there were none on campus and had not been for quite some time. Any COVID cases or concerns that you have heard about, and any players that you have maybe caught wind of who could be considering opting out of the 2020 season?
None that I've heard. And I can tell you for certainty with the tests, there's nobody right now that's tested positive because they've all kind of been in this bubble and everything's fine. But then again, school starts in a couple of weeks. As for opting to sit out, I've not heard that. We still got a few weeks to go. I mean, they might have a few more weeks after that before they actually have to make that decision. But right now, everybody's here, everybody's ready to play, and everybody wants to play.
That's what I want to hear. You see, that's what I want to hear. All right, David, what's in the paper this week that's going to depress us again?
Well, the ACC presidents are supposed to have a meeting tomorrow to which they may or may not unveil their plan. And, of course, what the ACC does will have a direct effect on South Carolina's season because so far they've managed to avoid it. You know, their out-of-conference games are not with conferences that have decided to waylay football or put it off to the spring. So this would be the first effect on USC's schedule if they say something. The popular thing these days seems to be to just keep kicking the can down the road. We'll see how that goes. But there may not be an announcement of that magnitude coming Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay, we'll keep our eyes peeled, certainly. And just of note to you, I was born the year after in 1985, so I didn't have to go through what my family did in 1984. However, because of that 1984 loss to Navy, that is the reason to this day that I say, go Army every December. Just so you know.
Because your blood was still garnet when you were born, whether or not you were around.
And black. Some parts of it were black, yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people to blame there, but it's just a nasty day. And as player said, it's not me saying. It's like, no, maybe we overlooked him a little bit. I'm like, well, when your coach comes out saying, hey, look, guys, all you got to do is beat this team and you're playing for a championship, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, turned out to be a big problem.
Well, it's like, hey, you know, in the last you'd have this number better than me. In the last 20 years or so, I think South Carolina has scheduled Navy. I know they've scheduled them once, twice, maybe.
Yeah,
sure.
I think it was just
that
the
once.
last 20 years. That's probably been twice because I remember the day that they put them on the last schedule. It was probably going to be for 2012 or 2013.
Yeah.
I actually remember hearing the game, and I called Ellis Johnson to get a comment, and he didn't know about it. I was like, yeah, man, they just added Navy to the schedule, and there was dead silence. And Ellis, who was, of course, the defensive coordinator, said, I wish they could consult me before they start scheduling these teams. No problem. I'm not going to put that in the paper, though.
Yeah, I know. You know what? Navy gave them a run for their money back then, too, and that was the heyday of Carolina football.
That triple option, you know, and Wofford's on the schedule this year.
Yep.
And I know that they've kind of gone to a more aired out kind of schedule, but there's still a lot of elements of that triple option in there.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where I'm like, I know you want to give the in-state schools a chance, but, you know, Presbyterian's looking for a game too. So
I know. The scars run deep with Navy and the Citadel, man. If you're a Carolina fan, there's no question. David, thank you so much.
Don't forget Furman either.
Yeah, honey, thanks. Yeah, you're crushing us around here today. No, thank you so much, brother. It's great to talk to you. We'll keep our eyes peeled on your Twitter page and the Post and Courier as always for more breaking news. We should be getting a bunch of that in the next few days. So thank you so much.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
I told David 10 minits. 22 minutes.
Yeah, that's our brand of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like when we say we'll call you at 12:30 and it's like 12:36.
Yeah,
it's the JB and Goldwater time.
Yeah, it kind of is what it is. We'll be on time to hit a break here in just a few minutes, and then Mike Morgan will join us at the top of the hour, and he is in Atlanta, Georgia, and we've got a lot to get to with him in college football. Certainly, as this day of breaking news, in addition to just the information we've had over the last few weeks is all combining into, wow, what could this look like here in the next couple of weeks? Real quick, if you missed this news, Mike Foltynewicz DFA'd by the Atlanta Braves. That means he has been designated for assignment, and Mike Foltynewicz will not be pitching in Atlanta uniform anymore. It does not mean that he has just been outright released or anything like that. They're not releasing him, so they will either trade him or they will just send him down to satellite camp in Gwinnett. But you won't see Mike Foltynewicz back up with the Braves this year.
Yeah, they don't want to release him and be on the hook for some of that salary if somebody else picks him up, number one. Number two, I didn't realize this until following up on it, but Foltynewicz was down like 5-6 miles an hour on his fastball. I mean, below 90 down. So it wasn't fixed from whatever was wrong in the extended camp till now, and they just said forget it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate news for him. He was an all-star less than 2 years ago.
Yep.
But won't be an all-star this year. Nobody will be an all-star this year. Good news for Fulton. You'll see him back in the big leagues. Kid's got an arm. He'll figure it out, but it won't be with the Braves this year. All right, real quick, couple notes last night from baseball as well. How about Taylor Clark, former power arm with the College of Charleston, gets in, I think it was 3 1/3 or 2 1/3 of scoreless innings with the Diamondbacks. So you got Taylor Clark and Taylor Widener from South Carolina. 2 Taylors don't make a right in the bullpen for the Arizona Diamondbacks. They did lose, and they are 1-3 on the season. But congratulations to him, former College of Charleston arm there. Speaking of the Braves, they were thumped last night by the Tampa Bay Rays, one of your potential picks, if not your pick, to make the World Series this year out of the American League East, 14-5.
19 strikeouts, a franchise record for Tampa Bay that the Braves helped them achieve.
Yeah, so not good for the strikeout. The strikeout numbers, I mentioned the strikeout numbers yesterday. Strikeout numbers continue to just soar in Major League Baseball.
There are 27 outs in a game.
Yeah.
19 of them were strikeouts last night. It's not the day you write home about.
Not a positive number. Got to see some extra innings last night. This whole start the runner at second thing. Brewers beat the Pirates 6-5. Justin Smoke did have a hit in the game. He's hitting .250 on the season, but a couple more strikeouts for him as well. So, Justin, I'm telling you, quit doing that crap. You got to quit striking out.
Just follow what JBJ's doing. I mean, his average is twice as good as Smoke's right now.
Yeah, Boston did lose last night, but Jackie had another hit now at 571 on the year. You go 1 for 3 and your average comes down. It's tough, but that means you started well.
I'm telling you, Red Sox are in for a long year.
Yeah, it's been tough. They got a good I like their lineup. I at least like the top of their line. If you get Jackie in the 7 or 8 hole at the end of the year, he's hitting 300. That should be a really good lineup. But at the end of the year, if he's hitting 300, someone's struggling up front, they'll probably Devers will get it going though. They're 3. That kid is wow. What maybe the best young offensive talent in the sport. I mean, he is talented, but he's struggling to start 2020. Who isn't? All right, time for a timeout, Darren. Plenty of football to get to. Mike Morgan with ESPN, the SEC Network, and the JC and Morgan podcast. He joins us next right here.
Honey Baked Ham in Somerville and in Mount Pleasant is your home for catering and lunch. Honey Baked Somerville, owned by former Gamecock right-hander Mike Cisco, is just off the interstate and they are ready to cater to your next business or family meal. Plus, drop in for an incredible sandwiches daily for lunch. The Mount Pleasant location is at the foot of the Ravenel Bridge and always ready to serve and cater to your next meals as well. Plus, delivery is available. Honeybake.com to find your menu today.
What's up, guys? It's JB. Obviously, things have been kind of crazy with the coronavirus taking over our lives. We're stuck inside with family, finding ways to be creative and probably tapping the liquor cabinet a little bit. If you don't have Patrick Davis's Whiskey Jam in yours, put on your mask and gloves and head to Bottles or Burris liquor stores here in Charleston. The Blackberry is my personal favorite on the rocks, but the original Whiskey Jam is Patrick's. So either way, you're winning with Whiskey Jam. WhiskeyJam.com, PatrickDavis.com.
One of these drinks is gonna cloud my memory.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon. Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Hey, South Carolina.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer.
Hey, South Carolina, what's going on? This is Patrick Davis, and you are listening to my friends JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
For grabs to Kinsey, ahead to Buckman, slam city for Ronaldo Buckman. 1-0 pitch, swing and a drive, deep left center field. Are you kidding me? It's out of here. A no-doubter for Disher. Saturday evening here in Bluegrass Country. Going out, throws it up in the air, and it is caught. Touchdown! Troy Williamson, what a catch! Bouchard with one. Pull up three, good if it goes. He got it! He got it! He got it! Carolina wins! He missed it. Rebound Holmes. Ahead to Frederick. Frederick lays it in at the buzzer. That's a win! Unbelievable! I don't believe it! I do not believe it! Carolina wins at the buzzer. 70-69. What a play! Now the students, some of them storming the court. Who cares?
103. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show. Live, loud, online. Podbean, you listen, you watch on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. You can go to JB and Goldwater Show and find all of that. And today you find the handsome face of Mike Morgan, and you just heard his golden tones bring us back and get us excited for something around here. What's up, man?
Man, it's it continues to be the best produced opening for my guest appearances on any show in America. So kudos to you guys.
The production is better than your camera angle. I see your nose, your eyebrows, and your hairline.
All right. Hold on. Let's see. Trying to get this positioned properly that's the biggest
There we go. Oh, there you go.
Zoom.
Okay.
Money.
All right.
How about that? All right. Are you seeing the great background that I provided?
What is it? What's on that wall? What are all those media passes? Credentials?
Yeah, 99% of that is those are credentials of games that I've called in the main three sports, going back to radio, Gamecock Radio, National Radio, Fox, Braves, Panthers, and ESPN. And then to the far, what would be my right, the thing in glass. Somebody did that for me back in Columbia. That was my first NSA Sportscaster of the Year award.
Yep.
And above that, in the white in frame, that is an Emmy nomination for the broadcast of the SEC tournament. It was Florida Vanderbilt. It was a semifinal, and Vanderbilt came from behind and won the game on a triple steal.
What?
Something I've still never called since then. And so they nominated it, and I wasn't able to even go to the awards because I was calling a game somewhere. And the only reason we didn't win that award, it was the same year Chipper Jones retired. And so Fox broadcasted his last game. They interviewed a tearful mom and dad. So needless to say, we did not come away with the hardware on that one.
That dadgum Larry.
Yeah.
You know?
You know? It's so typical of him, too. Typical.
You know, now he's on ESPN every night, him and Shiambi, and they have this kumbaya for 3-4 hours, and the guy lives a tough life, doesn't he?
Chipper, I'll tell you, quick story of it. Chipper's going to be really good, and, he to me, he's a little tight right now because he's, he just hasn't done it, and he's one of the smartest players I've ever been around. Don't let the all shucks kind of, country drawl, North Florida, just happy to be here vibe. He is incredibly bright. Could easily be a manager, but doesn't want that lifestyle. And I don't blame him. If I had as much money as Chipper, I wouldn't want to be going on the road for 162 games. But we hosted, there was a station here, 790 The Zone, an all sports station. When I moved here, I started hosting shows on it. And they said, Mike, would you be interested in hosting the Chipper Jones show once a week from a sports bar called Stats in downtown Atlanta? And I said, are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm in. And I already knew him from doing Braves stuff and interviewing him during my days on Braves radio. And I learned so much in those hours. He was so good. And I always said, if you wanted to be a broadcaster, you've got this down. He said, yeah, but I don't want to be doing 150 games a year. So now with ESPN, he does one a week. It's perfect. Perfect for Chipper, perfect for his schedule. And the audience will love Chipper Jones. All due respect to A-Rod and some of the other, Chipper Jones will quickly become one of the most popular, along with John Smoltz, another former Brave.
Mike, I agree with you. I thought Chipper is I think he's going to be great. Him and Boog have a great relationship.
Yeah.
And it's tough, though. I mean, imagine your first nationally televised stuff and you're sitting in a room with nobody else around you. I mean, it's not easy to call a remote game, let alone if you've never called one before, like a game at all.
Yeah, kind of baptism by fire. On top of everything else, I don't know if you caught it. They piped in John Smoltz. And Boog, who again used to be the TV announcer for the Braves. He was here for 3-4 years, and so he already knows all these guys. So Smoltz says, because you couldn't hear Chipper the first couple innings, you had trouble hearing him. So Smoltz goes on camera and says, hey, I do have one piece of advice for Chipper. He points to the microphone on his headset and said, yeah, see, it's not doing any good near the top of your forehead. You need to put it down near your mouth, and that way people can hear you better. It sounds simple, but look, if you've never done this and all of a sudden they throw you in the fire and you're on national television, you're going to be a little bit nervous. I am confident Chipper Jones knows where the microphone goes, but I'm also confident he was a little bit nervous, and that's just being human.
Oh, we've all been through that. I can't tell you how many interviews I've done just on this local level that I am, live on remote and outside of Williams-Brice Stadium. and you've got a guest sitting next to you, and you try to figure why can't, and you look over, and there it is. The mic is up by their nose. You're like, hey, man, you talk into that, not breathe into it.
It's the most awkward thing, too, when you're interviewing players and coaches. Like we always, usually when we do a game on SEC Network, if it's basketball, football and baseball, we have, football, we always have a sideline reporter. Baseball, we have to do it where they put the headsets on the field. But if it's basketball, they'll just join us courtside very often. And I can't tell you how many times I've done an interview and the guy's talking and the microphone is above his head. And it's that awkward moment where you can't say, hey, move your microphone in the middle of his answer. You don't want to reach toward his face and grab the microphone. That's a little bit imposing on someone's personal space now more than ever.
Yeah.
So you just you're in that awkward spot. Like, do I tell him? Do I fix it? Do I give him a hand gesture? It's always an awkward solution no matter what it is.
Broadcasting School with Mike Morgan live in Atlanta, Georgia, here on the JB and Goldwater Show. Well, thank you, man. It's great to. I can see you on my screen, but you actually have to look at Darren. So I apologize for that. We'll get that.
I can't see you. I just see.
No,
I see.
okay.
I see Darren in a appears to be red Greg Norman shirt, or maybe orange.
Orange, and then
that's not
there's
orange.
some national stuff behind me. I don't know if you can see, and I'm going to start hiding it here if it keeps going this way. So
I see Callaway clubs behind you. I see someone's been hitting the sticks.
Well,
I did that yesterday, and not very well, but I did it.
Hey, real quick, I know we don't have you forever, and we do actually, we want to get to football. There's a lot going on here, but I did see a picture the other day, and I'm trying to remind myself. Did you raft the Ocoee?
I did.
It was the Ocoee. Okay, have you rafted the Chiowa?
Yeah. Have I what now?
Have you rafted on the Chiowa yet?
Where is that? West Virginia?
No. It's Bryson City, North Carolina, is where you put in.
Oh, okay.
And it's
but I'd be willing to try it.
We should do that. We should plan a trip. I've gone to multiple times. We go to my family's house in Maggie Valley. It's a 4 or 5 star river, and it makes everything. No, I've never been on the Ocoee, but the guys who guide us on the Chiowa, they like the Ocoee's a challenge, as you well know. It is a challenge,
right.
But the Chiowa is not only a challenge. It's like. Don't be when they say front left back right or something like that. Don't be the guy who's asleep at the wheel because the boat's going to flip.
Well, and I like some risk involved. Now, Ocoee's class 3s and 4s.
Right.
Now they're biased. Obviously, they put all over their website. It's the best river in the South. It's one of the best in North America, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. My only other reference point, I did it 15 years ago in Costa Rica, and so I vaguely remember that. I just know I had a good time. But I had a blast at Ocoee, but I'd be more than willing to try another one, especially if it's got a little more danger to it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's plan Man Weekend. We'll play golf and raft. That'd be fun.
Okay.
Sold.
I'm in.
Bingo.
Let me ask my wife first, and I'll get back to you. Though.
Yeah, exactly. Let me know how that goes.
Well, we will plan this. All right, Mike. So the news today that the FBS has received this letter saying, hey, look, if you'd like to schedule games on August the 29th, you can do that. In your opinion, and I know we're expecting major decisions this week from the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12 appears to be just moving right forward with 12 games. But in your opinion, how many teams or conferences, however you would like to phrase this, will try to take advantage of actually moving their season up?
I think there will be more. First off, it's pretty apparent to me that Bob Bowlesby, and if you've been listening to the podcast, I know you have JC on a lot. We talked about this, multiple times, but the latest was 2 weeks ago when there was a lot of misinformation, and a lot of misinformation from national sports writers that their sole job is to cover college football. And in their anxiousness to tell everybody that the season is going to be canceled, they just omitted some facts. At no point have those 3 conferences, the Big 12, the SEC, and the ACC, said that or have really been influenced by the Big Ten's decision. The Big Ten, who has a first-year conference commissioner, made the move, and I think the feeling was from a lot of people, and quite frankly, there's a great deal of subjectivity in a lot of these tweets and reporting that you see, their hope is, because they believe, some of them believe, I'm not saying they're rooting for anything. I know that was a big discussion as of yesterday. A guy from the NFL Network tweeted that out. There's a difference between rooting and feeling like you know better than everybody else. And it's clear to me, and you know the names, if you follow them on Twitter, and some of these are guys that I respect, some are not. They believe it's a terrible idea to play football this year. They want you to know that. So they're going to applaud any move or measure that lets us down a path where we're going to have as little, if not any college football this season. That's what they think should be done. And they tell you, they either drop a million hints leading you that direction, or they just come flat out and say it. And they already have, as I say, the column written. The moment bad things happen, the moment like the Marlins situation that we're dealing with right now in Major League Baseball, the moment that happens to a football team or two, the column's already written. See, I told you so. Awful idea, terrible leadership, irresponsible, putting these young boys in harm's way. That's already taken care of. What I was going to before that tangent was that I never thought Greg Sankey in the SEC, John Swofford in the ACC, Bob Bowlesby in the Big 12 were just going to follow suit and go conference only. And they haven't. And it's apparent to me that the Big 12 is going to likely shoot for all 12 games. And really, if you're going to play a season, I find it hard to find the great advantages of scaling back. Like, everybody's going to have the same testing protocols. You're not going to play a team that's like going – pardon my French, half-ass on the testing. That's just not going to be allowed. And so, you're trying to convince people, like if you play 10 Big Ten games with no out-of-conference games, we're showing we care more. No, you're not. Those schools are getting on the same charter flights to play conference games, whereas to keep it to a game that you guys will be talking about all season long, the Carolina-Clemson game, that's a 2-hour bus ride. That's more safe than getting on a plane and doing your typical travel out of state. So the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, no doubt they're still wringing their hands on what exactly the right answer is, but at no point were they saying, well, the Big 10 did this, so now we got to follow suit. Otherwise, it's a bad look if we don't go anything other than conference only. They never bought into that. I applaud them for that. It's still a fluid situation. We don't know what's going to happen. Everybody's looking at the Philadelphia Phillies now. I would tell you that baseball is much different than football, and that baseball is essentially 7 games a week in this abbreviated season. So you don't have time to correct any outbreak of any kind other than just cancel games, which is what they're doing. Not forfeiting, which is a big point, because I think that's going to hold true in college football. When a team can't play due to an outbreak or several positive tests, if it reaches the point, even with a roster of 85 scholarship kids plus walk-ons, if they just decide we can't do it, I don't think that's going to go down as a forfeit. I don't think that that's where we're heading. I think that game just goes off the board, much like if it was due to a natural disaster or a hurricane. That's where the tea leaves that I'm reading, that's the way they look. And I think that's where we're heading. Could all this change? Of course, and I'm less concerned about being right than I am about accurate. Sure that I want a season like everybody else. I also realize there is a breaking point where it can't be done, but I've never thought we've reached that breaking point. And I know, again, when the Marlins story broke yesterday, how many people, clearly just bag the season, bag this, bag that. Football, are you listening? Same people that have been telling you all along there shouldn't be a football season. That was in their eyes, their golden ticket of validation. I don't think the people that run college football see it that way.
I totally agree. I mean, Mike, we're waiting on these announcements to come out. By the way, if you haven't listened to the JC and Morgan podcast, you're doing yourself an incredible disservice. If you'd like to actually receive real information that is,
pertinent,
and quality and truthful and things like that. Do you think that the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, they are all still working fairly in lockstep? I mean, the SECs, aren't they the common denominator here, because they've got games against both leagues, and I would like to think that it would be more important, depending on what they do with their schedules, to make sure you get those non-con scheduled against the ACC because they're rivalry games. But at the same time, the Big 12 is wanting to move forward with a 12-game schedule, and they can't do that unless they keep their games as it stands today with the SEC. Are they still lockstep?
I don't know about lockstep. I think they're trying to stay on as close a page as possible together. But one thing that's definitely not lockstep, I don't envision the SEC going to 9 conference games, whereas the Big 12 is staying with 9 conference games.
Oh, okay.
I just don't see that happening. Could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But based on things that I've been told, I don't think the SEC is going to radically change their conference schedule if they can keep some, whether it's a +1, +2, plus however many, out of conference games. In other words, you don't want an 8-game season. But by the same token, I don't think you're going to get those 14 coaches to say, you know what we need? We need to add more strength of schedule to our already difficult schedule. I just don't know. Because remember now, we still are playing for more things other than money here, right? Records matter in terms of a playoff, in terms of coaches getting hired or fired or extended, in terms of a happy fan base versus an unhappy fan base. So they don't want to just jump in and say, hey, well, if we played 2 more conference games, like the Big Ten is going to, maybe that's a solution. I don't think that's where the SEC is at right now. I think they would, in their perfect world, there'd be enough data and enough things that happen here in the next few days to say we're going to go for 12 games. I think in a perfect world. Now, as I continue to say, and I've said now for 4 months, remove the word ideal from your vocabulary. So we know there's nothing ideal about the upcoming season. So while you might want 12, you might have to go with less. And of course, there's still, and I would not say that this is off the table, you could still be forced to not play in the fall at all. But I just haven't heard enough to make me feel like they're going to just come out and say, oh, that's it. We can't do this. We can't make it work. No football. So after that, we're just dealing with details. But I don't think that it's going to be a one-size-all Big 12, ACC, SEC. I think there's a good chance the Big 12 would have, their 9 conference games, and it looks like they're aggressively seeking to play all 12, whereas I think the SEC would be inclined to keep their conference schedule intact and add as many non-conference games as they feel is feasible.
Yeah, it's pretty much right lockstep with what Bob Bowlesby said yesterday. I mean, there's no necessity for all 5 Power 5 conferences to have the exact same scheduling policies and procedures. It just there's really just no point to that. If we get to the point where we're playing and you're broadcasting games, are you on site? Are you in Atlanta? Do you have any idea what these plans look like yet?
No.
Yeah.
No. I've heard of there are different models in play. So what a lot of people have learned here lately, what many of us that have broadcasted for the major 2 networks have already learned, is that you can do it remotely. This started to really become popular, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, where a lot of the games overseas are being broadcasted that way. I think a lot of people don't even know that there are some Olympic sports that have been broadcasted from New York that have been taking place overseas in Europe and Asia. And then other companies such as Fox and ESPN started putting their foot in the water, putting their toe in the water for what they call REMIs, remote integration games. And most of us have done at least a couple of those. I've done a couple, never done a football one, but I've done a couple of basketball and a couple of baseball. And you're broadcasting in essentially a makeshift studio that could be the size of a closet. And just like I'm talking to you right now, I'm watching a screen and I'm trying to broadcast the game to the best of my ability of doing so. And of course, that's what's been going on with Major League Baseball so far. The networks know how to do that and know the capability of that. Is there a difference? Absolutely. I don't think any play-by-play or analyst would tell you it's quite the same. You just don't get the same feel, the same timing, the same viewpoints, the same information sometimes. But again, not necessarily going to be an ideal world for us either. So I don't know. To answer your long answer to your short question, it's just too. First, we got to come up with a schedule, right? Then we got to come up with who's doing what. Then we got to figure out which model is going to work for which game. I will say this: the SEC network, from its inception, has always done things on a first-rate level in terms of the production. What you see, I mean, every game that you see on the SEC network alternate, I don't care the level of the game, whether it's the primetime game, the noon game, the amount of resources that go into those games, they don't cut costs. I think when it was birthed in 2014, give or take, I think we just had our 6-year anniversary. The edict from upon high was, we're not going to do the model of some of the other leagues where we kind of just maybe go on the cheap here or there. We're going to do this first class. And so that's always going to be number one on the agenda in a normal situation. This being abnormal, it wouldn't be a cost-cutting measure. It would be more of a safety measure if they decided to get away from that. But right now, it's just too early to tell. At this point, I don't care if I call it a game from the backseat of my car. I just want to have games. I want to be able to get out there and broadcast something.
I'm with you.
But absolutely, and maybe a rivalry game, Mike, early in the year. I mean, Ray Tanner and Dan Radakovich have both been fairly outspoken when asked about wanting to play that game no matter what. The Clemson-South Carolina game is what I'm referencing here. Of course, there are others: Louisville, Kentucky, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Georgia Tech. Those four are ACC, SEC, typically end-of-year rivalry matchups. Now with this news that the season could start potentially a week earlier, if you would like to take advantage of that, or whatever scheduling philosophies are thrown around and adopted by these leagues, in your opinion, is there any motivation for these schools to maybe try to play the games that matter the most to them and their fans earlier in the year, if possible, like those I just mentioned?
Boy, I have a hard time thinking the coaches want that. Yeah. And the coaches' opinions do matter. All right. I realize they might not have the final say, but tell Dan Radakovich that Dabo Swinney's opinion doesn't matter.
I got $90 million that says it does.
Yeah, exactly. and what head coach wants to play its most important, in some cases most challenging. That might be different in this year, but I just don't know if that would be coveted. And if you can't play that game in November, that tells me we're just not playing college football in November, which puts the whole season, it makes it kind of a moot point anyway, right? That's where you're starting to wonder if you can really have a legitimate season at that point. So, I mean, you're going to have games in November for this thing to work in the fall. You're going to have the conference championship games in December. You're going to have bowl games around that time. So I don't really know what good comes out of moving that game to week one. Well, I think that game is incredibly important to everybody involved, just as Florida State is, just as Kentucky Louisville is. And that message is abundantly clear to both conference commissioners, which is why I've never bought into the all-conference model, one of the reasons. And I do think everything will be done to preserve those games this year if indeed we have a season.
You mentioned the bowl games. Let me ask you this. So, we see every year, Mike, where you get to these bowl games, unless now we're in the playoff era. And if you're in a playoff game, players are playing. But every other game essentially has players sitting out. I mean, do we really think that wouldn't happen this year? I mean, you'd have teams probably sitting out bowl games. And so I take that comment and translate to this. What does the future leadership look like in the sport of college football? I mean, you've got the NCAA, who they've made a couple of decisions here and there. They have not made some decisions here and there for whatever reason. They've done so or haven't done so. But, would it not be ideal to have somebody who can help us with decisions like these? Because, Mike, I think the playoff does matter. If you happen to play a 10, 12-game season, whatever it is, and you play a playoff, that's great. But does the Meineke Car Care Bowl matter? No, not really. So, like, I just have a different – I want to see the games played. I think that college football should play the season. But at the end of the year, should you bust all these teams for meaningless bowl games when players are going to be sitting out anyways? I don't think that that's – valid.
Well, there's a couple things in what you said there, so let's unpack it one by one. Number one, does college football need a czar or a commissioner? Absolutely. I don't think anybody would argue that. But we don't have one, and it doesn't seem like there's a major movement to produce one. So in the meantime, we just have the 5 families, the 5 commissioners of the Power 5, running the sport. And I wouldn't say running it poorly either. I mean, it's so easy to be cynical. Look, at the end of the day, there's never been more money in college football. Mm-hmm. Athletes have never gotten as much as they got. And I know that goes against the narrative of they're all being manipulated, exploited, et cetera. But do the math and really do your homework on it. I have no objection with them getting more with name, image, likeness, which is a runaway freight train that's not going to stop. That is coming. But most of these kids now are able to pocket extra money after having every single thing paid for in college, from every meal, room and board. They don't pay a bill of any kind. Forget about free education. We're well past that. They are supported the way you would support a child full-fledged. You're paying for clothes on their back. You're paying for food. You're paying for this. So those student athletes, and I hate that term as much as anybody else, but we'll just go with it. They've benefited. The schools have benefited. Everybody has benefited by deals that have been struck by going all the way back to the Roy Kramers of the world, who basically invented the conference championship game, and then the Mike Slides of the world, and now the Greg Sankeys of the world, and all this has happened under their watch. So we can be cynical and say that none of them have done a good job, like a lot of, again, the same people I was talking about earlier would do. But the fact of the matter is they've done something right. They're pretty good at business. We know that. They weren't sleeping in economics class. And the sport has never been more popular, college football, that is. With that being said, it's clear that you have 5 people, in essence, looking out for number 1 first. And I'm not begrudging them for that. That's the nature of the beast. Their job, they get paid that 7-figure salary by looking out for the 12, 13, 14 institutions that are in their league, or 10 if you're the Big 12. So that only stands to reason that they're gonna look out for a number 1. So you'd love to have a neutral party that would go out and really look out for the best for everybody, for all 65 schools in the Power 5 plus Notre Dame. And you'd like somebody, quite frankly, that would look out for the so-called little guy too, the Group 5. But we don't have that right now. Love to have it. I don't know how soon that's going to happen. I haven't seen any momentum that would lend me to believe it's going to happen. Now, your other question, the bowl games. Look, bowl games, I stopped getting upset about the meaningfulness of bowl games a long time ago. The bottom line is the Meineke Car Care Bowl is just as relevant or irrelevant as it normally is. I remember when people were talking about, well, we have a playoff, the bowls are going to be irrelevant. No, the Outback Bowl is just as relevant or irrelevant, depending on how you look at it, with a 4-team, 8-team playoff. You're either playing for the national championship or you're playing in a kind of glorified exhibition at the end of the season. Are players going to continue to sit out those games? Sure they are. Particularly if they're going to be a high draft pick. I think that's going to happen, pandemic or no pandemic. I mean, I think that once McCaffrey and others started doing that, I think that let the toothpaste was out of the tube. It was not going back in. We're going to see more and more of that. In terms of what are the 42 bowl games going to look like this year, Jamie, I have no earthly idea. And anybody tells you that they do, they're lying. How could we possibly know? We're just trying to get a regular season schedule, pull that off, pull off championship game week, and pull off a playoff. Whatever happens on top of that with bowl games, to me, is just cherry on top of the sundae. But I can't get too worked up about whether or not this game or that game is going to go off. And if it does go off, we'll go off without a hitch. And when it's 6 players on this side and 5 players on that side sit out, two above my pay grade. But I'm not even worried about that. I just want to get the regular season going if we can.
Yeah. Well said. All right, final question here, a couple minutes, and then you're off. We'll let you have the rest of the day off.
No, thank you for that.
No
Appreciate that.
You going to some beach somewhere? I mean, everything on Instagram is you, sand, water, something.
He's a big.
This is the beautiful thing about social media. You can create a mirage of what your life is actually like. My life is really not that exciting, but I don't post pictures of me, eating breakfast in sweatpants in the morning and getting ready to mow the lawn. Like, that's not really exciting. So I don't post that. But when I actually do something remotely exciting, I figure, well, I guess I should post this picture for posterity. And people say, wow, Mike, you're living the life. You're whitewater rafting one week, you're tubing the next, you're at a beach the next. Well, that's all over a span of several weeks in a time in which I have no games to call.
Nothing to do.
but I promise you, my life is really not that exciting.
I bet you'd much rather spend your time in places like Starkville, Mississippi in the fall, right?
In all honesty, I would. I mean, I've had enough time to recharge the batteries and decompress. We all do need that in this line of work, and to just get away from broadcasting and to get away from sports in some ways altogether. But yeah, I'm over that now. I'm ready to go back to the quote unquote grind, the routine. We all love what we do, and I'm ready to get back to that.
I'll say this before Jamie finishes off with like an actual sports talk. I saw you were surrounded by bull sharks. I was diving 2-3 years ago, and I was in the water with a bull shark. It was not nearly as comfortable.
Where was that?
Bahamas.
Really?
Yeah.
Not in a cage.
No. He was.
They let Darren out of the cage for this one.
They let him out of the cage, a 1 week reprieve.
That's right.
Back to the cage.
That's right. He was probably 100 yards ahead of us or so, and didn't really look at us. We were a group of about 7 or 8.
Yeah.
But it was. I mean, we all knew what we were looking at, and that's not a shark you need to see when you're down there.
No, and there's some of the most aggressive sharks. I've been watching Shark Fest, Shark Month, Shark whatever, as I normally do, and I've ever since that boating excursion that we had, and you had all these bull sharks right around our boat, and our captain there is like dangling a half-eaten fish bleeding in the water, and they're literally jumping out of the water toward our boat. And I'm like, is this normal? He said, yep, that's bull sharks. I said, okay. So now when I see bull sharks on any type of documentary or what have you, I'm fascinated because I know how close I was. And just, the way my mind works is what's the worst case scenario? Just like when I get on an airplane, I always think worst case scenario. It's a terrible way to go through life, but it's what I do. And I just sit there and, I wonder, what if I just happen to slip, take a bad step? We all do that from time to time. And I fall in the water, and you have all these just juiced up, angry bull sharks. And
That's
the guy
a bad
goes,
scenario.
yeah, you'd be eaten whole in about 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay, good to know.
It sounds like Twitter.
Yes, you got bull sharks and the blue checkmark brigade.
That's right. All right, we got Darren, maybe 2 or 3 minutes left, right?
Sure.
What if the ACC announces that Notre Dame is part of a 15-team league this year only? What additional obstacle, or does it provide an additional obstacle for Clemson to make the college football playoff?
Well, assuming they play, it would just be, in all likelihood, a make or break. Assuming Clemson won all their other games, if they played Notre Dame and lost, are you assuming that game would be in the ACC championship game, which reportedly they're going to be available to play in?
Right, that's what I'm referencing, because they'd be going to a 15-game, no-division league, and so the top 2 teams would just play in the ACC championship.
I would find it, just like any other year, I'd find it hard to believe the loser of the ACC championship game would somehow get in the playoff.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, even if that's what I guess that was the hypothetical point, is like if Clemson goes to South Bend, they play the game, they beat Notre Dame, and then they have to play them again in an ACC championship game, and they happen to lose that game, you got two teams sitting there, whatever the record is, 9-1,
Yeah,
10-1.
I mean, it's so hypothetical because we don't know what's going to happen in the other leagues. But if you would just go on track record, do you believe the ACC is going to get 2 out of the 4 playoff teams?
No. No, I think it makes
hard to believe.
I think it makes their road to the college football playoff. I mean, right now they're sailing to the college football playoff, but I think it puts a couple of bumps in the road if Notre Dame is in there, and that is what this league then looks like.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could look at it one of two ways if you're a Clemson fan. I mean, it gives you a little more street cred, so to speak. The ACC was lousy last year. I think it's going to be improved this year, but it's not going to be top to bottom to the level of the SEC, top to bottom the level of the Big Ten. So based on that, if you could have another quality data point win, it'd be nice for Clemson. And if you're a Clemson fan, you're confident enough that right now you're in a different level, and they are a different level than what Notre Dame is at. I mean, Notre Dame is a brand, yes, but they made the playoff once, got embarrassed. For the most part, they just haven't been relevant on the national championship scale. I realize they provide ratings and touchdown Jesus and everything else. Glory be to Notre Dame. But the fact of the matter is they're not in the same conversation of the same 5 teams we talk about every year, which are, as we know, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and I would add Georgia to that list. And, of course, last year LSU crashed the party with a magical year, which I'm not sure if they're going to be able to repeat in the next couple. But it's the same 5 we talk about every year. You could expand it, and you could add LSU, and you could add maybe Texas, and you could add maybe Penn State. You could add maybe Oregon. Notice I didn't mention Notre Dame.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that because they're not in that class. And until they start proving it, then I'm not going along with it. I'd love to see them in a conference. They don't seem to really be in a hurry to do so, and that's their prerogative. It's my prerogative to determine based on what they do play that they're not nearly as relevant as some people would like to think they are.
Well said. Glad to have you, Mike. I'll be in touch with you very, very soon, and appreciate your time as always. Extended time today. It's also nice to have Mike because he doesn't carry himself like that Sapikoff guy does. You know, Sapikoff
throwing darts. Huh?
Gene's now all he sits on Paul Feinbaum's lap now, so we're second fiddle to him. Not Mike Morgan though.
Okay,
I've been on Feinbaum a dozen times. I will still come on the JB and Goldwater podcast.
Thank you. That means a lot to the little guys around here.
That's right.
Gene just snubs his
I don't
nose.
Consider you a little guy. I'm like Chevy Chase and Caddyshack. How do you measure other golfers' time? By height.
We're the middle guys.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Thank you, buddy. Like I said, I'll be in touch quite soon. We'll do this again before you know it, okay?
All right, I will keep this ensemble behind me ready for the next appearance. Maybe
perfect.
I'll throw in some bobbleheads or something. I've got plenty of memorabilia. We can spruce this up.
We need to do the same.
We
We'll have
do.
a competition. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, guys, be good.
See ya.
Mike Morgan on Twitter at Morgan on Air as part of the ESPN and the SEC network. Also, the JC and Morgan podcast is second to none out there. Download it wherever you get your podcast, just like us. After we're off the air, we're in podcast form as well. But thanks to Mike Morgan for a lot of time today on our program. All right, timeout. And when we return, we've got some news to get to, and we'll jam it all into the last 15 minutes right here on the JB and Goldwater Show.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Let me see what you can do.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
And that's just how we do it.
Live, loud, and online.
The moon comes up and the sun goes down. We find a little spot on the edge.
There's no question about that. The sun is up, but it'll go down. It's gonna be.
It'll come back up.
Yeah, it'll be back up, and it'll be really hot again, like it's been here in the Lowcountry. JB and Goldwater Show. About 15 minutes left in our program. Mike Morgan, he's special. One of the golden tones in sports broadcasting, certainly, and ESPN and the SEC Network are quite lucky to have him. Hopefully, we'll hear him calling a football game here pretty soon. Thanks to Patriots Point for presenting our national anthem every day at 1 o'clock. We thank them every day for a reason. You should thank them, too, for providing one of the best museums that you can find in the country. It is the home of the USS Yorktown, the USS Clamagore, the USS Laffey, and the Vietnam War exhibit, amongst other things. There's a lot of educational opportunities available at Patriots Point. If you head to patriotspoint.org, you can find out all of that. You can buy tickets. You can plan your visits. You can plan your tours. You can go exploring virtually on their website. They'll tell you about news and events and things of that nature. A bunch of education programs, as I mentioned. Right now you can't, but eventually you'll be able to do this again. You can even camp on the USS Yorktown. It's really, really, really cool. If your family's coming to town this summer, take them to Patriots Point, to the USS Yorktown. Also, maybe take them to Patriots Point on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday evening, because right now it's the Holy City Drive-In movie series, holycitydrivein.com, for each weekend's schedule. Last weekend was really good. This weekend, really good as well. Matter of fact, remember the Titans will play on Friday night. On Saturday, Mona, Disney's Mona, that's a family night. And Sunday, laugh your blank off, it's Wedding Crashers. Next weekend, August 7th, Friday night, Pretty Woman.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And then the Jumanji, Saturday night.
That's a crazy movie.
It's a crazy, Kevin Hart, The Rock, and them. What a series. And then Sunday night, I love this movie. Every time it's on, I think it's funny. I watch it. Hitch.
That is a good movie.
It's a great movie.
First time I saw Hitch was
Will Smith and Kevin James.
Yeah, there was I don't know, some cross-country flight that I was on. And there was also, speaking of Kevin James, a time in college where I was sitting with a fitted hat. It was backwards, and a professor looked at me and goes, "You look just like Kevin James." I dropped the class.
Hey, if you're funny like Kevin James, that's always good.
That's fine.
Kevin James is funny.
They'll just walk up to me and tell me I look like him.
Yeah, he is hilarious.
We got a little breaking news here.
Okay.
Marlins season, at least temporarily, has been paused this year. This will allow the team to continue to monitor health and safety of players. There are some rumblings of because there are now a bunch of teams involved unable to play because of the Marlins, like the Orioles and the Nationals who don't want to go to Florida, and the Yankees and the Phillies. There is some talk of maybe having those teams play each other in some form or fashion.
Okay, so they might have to, that sounds like some schedule adjustments are headed your way, certainly, yeah. So a paused season for the Miami Marlins. I would anticipate this is probably going to take a minimum a week, if not two, just based on medical
protocols.
I mean, trying to get kids cleared to play. So there you go. That is big news from Major League Baseball. More to come on that, I'm sure, tomorrow. This will be coming out all day. I'm sure we'll get some schedule changes and stuff of that nature. Real quick, in the NFL, Deebo Samuel, he's going to start the year on the injured list. Did I miss exactly what was wrong with him? I think I did. But I know he's starting the year on the injured list, so I'll have to go back and take a look at that. But no Deebo Samuel to start the season for the San Francisco 49ers. Albert Huggins, former Clemson defensive lineman, he's been claimed by the Houston Texans. We'll see what happens in training camp, whether he makes the squad or not. And I did want to throw this note in here. I spoke with Elliott Fry last night, who is a former kicker at South Carolina, all-time points leader for the Gamecocks, and currently with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I did ask him, I said, he's type 2 diabetes. And I said, how do you feel? He said, I feel good. I don't feel concerned. Protocols have been really good. We're very safe. I'm very comfortable with what we're doing around here, and hoping for a really good year. Hopefully we get the whole season in. And then I said, well, how's Brady? And I'm going to quote him here. He said, well, I haven't talked to him too much. I'm still a little starstruck.
It is Tom Brady. He probably thinks he's like this good looking. There's probably like a halo around Tom Brady. Just like angelic thing that walks around.
Yeah, he said they've spoken a decent amount, but not a ton. But he said he's still pretty starstruck by that. But Elliott Fry has bounced around from team to team. I'm just shocked he has not been a permanent kicker in the NFL yet. He is really good. But for whatever reason, he's been passed up. But that might be the Bucs' gain this year because they're going to go to the Super Bowl, according to some, and maybe Elliott Fry will get himself a Super Bowl ring.
Deebo Samuel, broken foot in June.
Foot. Yeah, that's right. I was like, wait, I knew about that. Broken foot. But he's expected to heal just fine. It's just going to be a delayed start to the season.
Yeah, he's probably going to miss a game or two, or a few.
If you go to profootballrumors.com, that will give you a running list of the opt-outs in 2020. And there's a bunch of names on there, but the most notable note from this list is the growing number of names with the New England Patriots, and that includes the most recent linebacker Dante Hightower, who I think just had a child, and he's a little concerned about that. So no Dante Hightower, the former Alabama star, no Patrick Chung at safety, Marcus Cannon starting tackle, he's out, Brandon Bolden running back, Danny Vital, they've both elected to opt out. And Najee Tehran, he's also an offensive lineman who's not going to play this year. But profootballrumors.com will give you the full list, each player with whatever team they represent, if they are choosing to not play in 2020. This list is going to continue to grow. I don't know how big it'll be, and I have not necessarily heard what protocols will be in place for the NFL if they need to replace players and things like that in the middle of the season. Here's the good news, though. They're getting into camp. Knowing that these kids are going to opt out now, they'll be able to sign guys while they're in camp.
Yeah, they haven't put out their protocols for that part yet.
No.
In fact, players technically are not supposed to be opting out yet. That window opens up in a couple of days, but some are just putting it out there now anyway. But it's 6.
You don't have to wait on me.
Yeah,
No.
it's 6 Patriots.
Yeah, six Patriots have elected to opt out.
So what's Bill Belichick got up his sleeve?
Well, he's got Cam Newton now. Remember, Cam Newton's the savior of everything in the world.
Right.
According to
forgive me, I forgot.
Yeah. You're probably going to see some college players opt out as well. David Cloninger did say earlier none have even whispered that in Columbia. But we did find out today from Barrett Salee with CBS Sports that Rayvon Bonner with Illinois, he is opting out of the 2020 football season, expected to be their starting running back. But he will not play this year. So as camp opens up over the next week to 10 days, you might hear some more of this. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be a huge trend, at least initially. Might get more of this news later in camp if there are some positives and things like that start to pop up. But we'll keep our eyes on that, certainly. Again, remember the big news of the day in college football is that a blanket waiver has been approved by the NCAA, allowing FBS schools to start on August the 29th if they'd like to. Mike Morgan, David Cloninger both agree, both on our program today, saying they think there will be more teams that take advantage of that to try to get games in, especially some of these programs who have students not coming back to campus until maybe mid-September or even later. You got some other, remember announcements like a month ago, you got some schools saying after Thanksgiving break, like Notre Dame, South Carolina, hey, Thanksgiving break, that's it. We're online only after that. So that'll be another weekend without students, or 2 or 3, depending on how long the school year goes. But they will be there prior to. So we'll see how this plays out. The Braves designated Mike Foltynewicz. You probably have heard that. They have recalled righty Chad Sabatka to replace him on the roster. So that is all news. All right, to Charleston Southern, really good day for them. Today is media day for the Big South, which nobody really knew that this was happening. But it is a media day in some way, shape, or form.
They're putting out media.
They're putting out, issuing media. 9 Charleston Southern football players have been selected by the media as all Big South preseason members. 6 of those 9, Darren, first team selections. 3 of those 6 on the defensive line. Nick Sally, Chandre Mims, and Anton Williams. Defensive back Cody Klein, kicker Alex Usry, and long snapper Ethan Ray, the other members of the first team. Their honorable mention, J.T. Melton, offensive lineman, Garris Schwarting at wide receiver, and quarterback Jack Chambers. By the way, picked 3rd in the Big South.
Got a little momentum building up in Ladson right now.
Is Charleston Southern and Autry Denson. Yeah, this is, you talk about a team that wants to play. They felt pretty good. What was interesting, 2020 preseason rankings, Kennesaw State, number 1, Monmouth 2.
They're gone.
But they're not playing.
Yep.
CSU at 3. So does that mean, maybe CSU 2?
CSU also, we haven't heard the Big South make a blanket statement yet. They're trying to proceed without Monmouth and Hampton, so they're down 2. Robert Morris does join the league next year. There's a possibility Robert Morris can play a Big South schedule. If Charleston Southern loses some other games for a variety of different reasons, there are also some independents, group of 5 FCS types that may be around and may be able to plug in some of those spots, even potentially some money games that could be out there for Charleston Southern. So they're going to hang on until the last possible moment before they decide they can't play. They're going to keep pushing forward and see if they can.
Okay. All right. From Columbus, Ohio State will have a limit of 20,000 fans at football games this fall. That is the limit. They will also welcome students if they play, and if state law says that they can have fans. This is what the policy will be if they're allowed to have fans, which as of now, I think they're allowed to have fans, but that, of course, could change. They will also ban tailgating, though. So no tailgating. Show up, watch the game if you're lucky enough to do so, and then, Darren, get the hell out of there and go home.
At least they're putting out these plans of, we want people in the stands. So these plans are forward thinking.
Yeah.
We're moving ahead.
Yeah,
it's not tapping the brakes.
20,000, 20% of their capacity. I think they seat 100,000.
Yep.
Right?
Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Tennessee. Those are the massive stadiums.
Yeah. Tomorrow, the ACC, we do have J.C. Sherbert tomorrow. ACC presidents meet tomorrow, hoping for news to probably leak, I'm sure, out of that. And then the SEC presidents meet on Thursday, and within, I'd say, the next 3 or 4 days, we're going to have a lot more than we've got now based on the information that we've received. And based on that information, you collectively put that together. We're probably going to have some kind of plan in place for football season, Darren, so you and I could finally, quit being lazy and actually start talking about football.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
It's going to be a busy couple days. With whatever's going on with the Marlins in baseball, with the ACC and SEC meeting, we're going to be finding things out here in the next couple days.
No doubt about that. You're about to find out what day today is. It is everybody's favorite segment as part of the JB and Goldwater show. What day is today? There are 3 National Day holidays on July the 28th.
I know what tomorrow is.
Yeah, July the 29th.
Yeah, well, yes, but thanks.
Today, for all you Bob Marley fans, it is Buffalo Soldiers Day.
Okay, I can get behind anything Bob Marley.
Yeah, there you go. You could probably sing the song in your head.
Yes,
now.
you can.
That's one of those songs when you hear it, it's in your head forever. Buffalo. Yeah, there you go. Enjoy Buffalo Soldiers Day with a good cold glass of... I'm sorry, I read that wrong. I had the words mixed up. Enjoy Buffalo Soldiers Day with a nice, crisp milk chocolate candy bar. National Milk Chocolate Day.
Milk chocolate is one of my, guilty pleasures. If there's chocolate around, it's gone. I'm going to eat it. I'll eat it.
And you could enjoy Buffalo Soldiers Day with Bob Marley in the background while you're enjoying a milk chocolate candy bar, while you're sitting outside enjoying this in the heat of summer in Charleston, South Carolina. Happy National Water Park Day, folks.
Okay.
Everybody loves a good water park.
So the girls are up in Brevard. They're in North Carolina right now, and got some video of our 7-year-old Grayson sliding down some like rock slide thing. It looked awesome.
Well, I've been on that. It's sliding rock.
How about that?
Shockingly enough, and it is so cold. But
I did hear that as well.
It costs money to do now. When I was a kid, you just parked in the woods and walked to it and slid down the rock, and there you go. Tomorrow is a really good day.
I know.
We'll probably have to do a little special in this with JC or something like that. Tomorrow's a really good day.
I know one of them, and it's a very good day.
Yeah, if you're a fan of food and good food, you'll love tomorrow. We can breathe. Don't forget, DB's Cheesesteaks. They serve our program every day. Matter of fact, they're serving supper at my house tonight.
Nice.
Yeah. Going to hop on the DoorDash app around 4 o'clock today. Have it delivered around 5, just in time for the kids to eat, too. DB's Cheesesteak is the best cheesesteak in Charleston. DB'sCheesesteaks.com for delivery and their entire menu in Avondale and West Ashland. Thanks to Mike Morgan with ESPN, the SEC Network, and, of course, part of the JC and Morgan podcast for joining us today. Back-to-back in that podcast. We got the other guy tomorrow, JC.
There we go.
Yeah. Always a good laugh with him, certainly. Neither one mince words. There's no question about that.
No. You know how they both think.
Thanks to Darren Goldwater, as always, for his fine work. Stay cool, but have a terrific Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow at noon on the JB and Goldwater Show.